In the brutal skies over Nazi-occupied Europe during World War II, the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress the BAC Fortress was the backbone of the American daylight bombing campaign. These massive four-engine bombers flew in tight formations, dropping tons of bombs on German factories, rail yards, and cities to cripple the Nazi war machine. But the cost was staggering. German Luftwaffe fighters, sleek Messerschmitt Bf-109s, and powerful Focke-Wulf Fw-190s swarmed the formations like wolves, picking off stragglers and pressing home deadly attacks. No position on the B-17 was more vulnerable or lonelier than the tail gunner. Crammed into a tiny compartment at the very rear of the aircraft, the tail gunner knelt on a small pad or sat on a bicycle-like seat, facing backward with twin .50 caliber Browning machine guns. At high altitude, temperatures plunged to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit or colder, oxygen was thin, and the noise was deafening. Isolated from the rest of the 10-man crew, the tail gunner was the last line of defense against rear attacks, which the Germans favored most. The problem was a deadly blind spot. Directly below and behind the B-17's massive tail fins and elevators, there was a cone of space the gunner couldn't see. Early B-17 models used simple ring-and-bead iron sights, forcing the gunner to press his face close to the gun sight while kneeling awkwardly. This position obscured the low rear approach. Clever German pilots exploited this, diving low into the blind spot before pulling up sharply to rake the bomber's belly with 20mm cannons and machine guns. Many B-17s were lost this way. Engines crippled, fuel tanks ignited, crews killed before the tail gunner even spotted the threat. Enter Staff Sergeant Michael Romano, a 22-year-old tail gunner from a working-class family in the American Midwest. Young, resourceful, and determined not to die in that frozen tail, Romano had already survived several harrowing missions by late 1943. On one flight over Bremen, a pair of Fw-190s slipped into the blind spot, climbed unseen, and shredded his bomber's engines. The crew barely limped home. Romano watched helplessly as friends in other B-17s weren't so lucky. Frustrated and angry, he vowed to fix the problem himself. Back at their base in England, likely one of the muddy airfields in East Anglia, Romano started experimenting. He drew inspiration from small signal mirrors in the crew's survival kits, meant for flashing sunlight to rescuers if shot down. He scavenged more, polished metal scraps from maintenance shops, broken glass, wire, tape, even spoons if needed. Working secretly at night in the hangar, unauthorized modifications were frowned upon, even banned. Romano rigged a crude but ingenious system. He mounted 2 or 3 small mirrors on a makeshift frame near the guns. Angled precisely, the primary mirror reflected the view from below the tail upward, into a secondary mirror that bounced the image directly into the gunner's line of sight. It was like a periscope for the skies, eliminating the need to crane his neck awkwardly. The setup wasn't perfect. It was ugly, taped together junk with minor distortions and its own small blind spots. It required tweaks between missions, but it worked. For the first time, Romano could spot low-approaching fighters 10 to 15 seconds earlier, precious time in dogfights where closing speeds exceeded 500 miles per hour. The true test came on a mission deep into Germany, perhaps over Schweinfurt or Wilhelmshaven, targets infamous for heavy fighter opposition. As the formation droned onward, Flak bursting around them, Romano spotted the telltale glint of sunlight on canopies far sooner than before. 2 FW-19Os were climbing from the blind spot, positioning for a killing shot. Thanks to the mirrors, he tracked them smoothly. His twin .50s roared to life, tracers arcing out. The lead fighter took hits in the engine, smoke pouring as it rolled over, and spiraled down. The wingman broke off, fleeing into the clouds. The B-17 flew on, unscathed. Word spread like wildfire through the 8th Air Force bomber groups. Crews whispered about the crazy mirror rig that let one gunner bag kills where others missed. Soon, tail gunners across bases were copying it, some using pocket mirrors, others polishing aluminum cans. Ground crews turned a blind eye. Survival trumped regulations. The impact was profound. Accounts from the time described tail gunners suddenly downing more fighters, disrupting German attacks, and protecting crippled bombers long enough to reach safety. Popular retellings claim the improvised mirrors tripled effective hit rates, from dismal single digits to over 20% in some squadrons, by enabling earlier detection and more accurate fire without the old sight's parallax errors. Thousands of American airmen likely owed their lives to this low-tech innovation, as rear assaults became far riskier for the Luftwaffe. Higher command initially grumbled about illegal mods, but results silenced critics.